Hi everybody, this is Lee Martins, and I am going to discuss a case study with you today. A good teacher turns bad. Stress at home causes problems at school. The summary of the case study: Mrs. Horton is a first grade teacher. She is a very seasoned professional, awarded Teacher of the Year, just a great teacher in general, but the principal has noticed that there's been a change in Mrs. Horton. She's less friendly to her coworkers, kind of refusing to do certain tasks that normally wouldn't have happened from her. She shows up late to school several times a week and refusing to talk to parents. The principal learns through some investigating that Mrs. Horton's personal life has taken a turn for the worst. She's now kind of a single mom at home and is dealing with all those issues which now are affecting her school. The first 6 weeks of school, Mrs. Wilson has been getting letters from parents. They are claiming that the teacher is verbally abusive to the children and that she is ignoring their attempts to conference with her. Furthermore, the Board of Education was notified by 4 parents complaining and demanding that action be taken to get their kids taken out of Mrs. Horton's classroom. So, as any good principal should do, Mrs. Wilson decides to confront Mrs. Horton about the allegations, especially those of a very enraged father, Mr. Strafford, and he wants his child moved as soon as possible. Long story short, Mrs. Horton denies the allegations but decides to meet with the parents. So while meeting, Mr. Strafford becomes agitated, starts accusing the teacher. She starts denying it in a very angry voice, yelling at the parent, and the meeting was called off quickly. The father is demanding that the father is demanding that the daughter be taken out of her classroom and wants the principal to do something about it as soon as possible. So let's identify the problem. Here's what I know. Miss Horton has some issues at home. They are affecting the way she's teaching and interacting with people in the building. There have been multiple complaints, and including to the Board of Education, and parents are wanting immediate action from the principal. And what I need to know is I have to go into investigation mode. I need to know, are these allegations actually true? Who else has been affected by this issue? Why are there only 4 parents that are now expressing concern? Or is it just those 4 kids, or is it an entire classroom situation? I want to know what exactly is going on in Mrs. Horton's personal life. Maybe not to get too personal, but if it's affecting her work, it's kind of time for her to open up and let me know what the situation is. And I need to know legally, to not get sued, to not get in trouble, what are my next steps? What's the policy for something like this? So my biggest problem is Mrs. Horton's accused of verbal abuse and she's not abiding by district policy. So my plan of action as a principal, here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to meet with my person, my administrator, my mentor, and discuss this issue and ensure that I have a case to put Mrs. Horton on an out-of-cycle evaluation plan. And I'm using this based on my Shawnee Mission School District. From my interviews with my principal, if any teacher is not performing well and they're not on eval for that year, they can be put on a mandatory out-of-cycle loop. So I have to be evaluated every 3 years. So if this was in between there, I could be put on eval based on the needs that my principal sees. So I want to put this person on out-of-cycle evaluation. I want to make sure that I'm legally okay. I need to investigate all the allegations. So I'm documenting everything. How many times I go into her classroom, what am I seeing? I want to also interview students. I want to know what their take is. I want to see their side of things. And I also want to have a thorough meeting with Mrs. Horton to discuss, why are these allegations coming up? What do you think could have happened? Just kind of get all the dirt out on the table so that we can really investigate and make sure that all ends are covered. Either way, as long as she's already got these 4 complaints, she's showing up to school late and being argumentative with the coworkers and not complying with things, I feel like I already, outside of those allegations, have just cause to reevaluate where she's at right now. So I think either way, she's going to be on that out-of-cycle eval. So I'm going to put Mrs. Horton in a meeting after she knows, what we're doing. We're going to have a third party there, either my mentor, someone from NEA, the teachers union that might represent her. And we're going to talk about, she's going to be put on this evaluation cycle, and here's what I expect of her. Excuse me. I also am going to tie her out of cycle evaluations on the 3 professional teaching standards that I think she needs to work on. The focus on standards 5, 9, and 10, I have all are focused on behavior management with the student, and also appropriate relationships with their coworkers, parents, and staff. So I think if she were to work on those things, I can see improvement in the way she's behaving herself in the classroom. I'm going to offer personal support and give her as many resources as possible. So based on these 3 standards I think that she needs some more professional development on, I'm going to locate those resources, find them for her, and give her a plan of action as, hey, here's this book I would like you to read. Let me know what you're going to take away from that. Or here's this webinar on student behavior. Let's look at this. Tell me what you think afterwards in a couple of weeks. So she's going to have steady check-ins. I'm going to be in her classroom as much as possible doing observations. I'm going to grant Mr. Strafford the reassignment. I don't know how a parent would be able to come back from that without holding a grudge and kind of making the rest of the year miserable for Mrs. Horton and for the child. And I just feel like that's already on the table. Let's get a fresh start, and let's help Mrs. Horton right now be the best teacher she can be for the remaining students in the class, and let's try to give them, the benefit of the doubt, and her. Let's see here. So after that, resolve the issues based on promoting the success of all students. So the first thing I want to do after I talk with Mrs. Horton about the situation, I want to meet with these parents, and I want to know how they're feeling. I want to let them know that there's a plan in place and to notify me if there's any more issues, but I want to appease all of these parents that are sending complaints. I want to move Mr. Strafford's daughter, but I'm not 100% sure I want to move the rest. I want to give them more time. I want to really investigate. It really just depends on what the feedback I get from Mrs. Horton, if she really did say those things, or is this, are they feeding off of each other? I want to give Mrs. Horton also some trust to know that she can redeem herself with that. I will also look into the well-being of Mrs. Horton. Does she need therapy? Does she need counseling? Does she need any district resources? We do have a health center here. We do have doctors, her insurance. I can help, align therapist or whatever, kind of give her an outlet to go do that. I'm also going to check back in with the superintendent. They called me to inform me of the 4 parents that talked to the board. So I am in turn going to, hey, here's the issue. Here's, the action steps. Please let me know if there's anything else that you hear that I need to be, careful of. I'm going to be very professional through my evaluations, through observations. I'm going to follow the book. I'm not going to mess that up because I don't want this coming back on me. And, in the event that Mrs. Horton does not improve, I need to make sure I have the documentation and everything I need on my end to get her either out of the classroom or some other help that we need to do. I'm also going to continually, during the out-of-cycle eval, I'm going to check in with random students. I'm going to kind of pull a few, like, hey, how are things going in here? Are children happy? I just want to get a general sense of what the other students that parents have not complained, how are they feeling in here as well? Okay, debriefing. Here's what I'm thinking. How on earth is Mrs. Horton going to come back from this? She has, maybe possibly said things to these students, and I know kids are pretty resilient, but parents hold grudges, and if this was my son, I would be very angry too, and also demand a classroom placement change. So I'm really hoping that through this evaluation, all the support that I'm going to give her and the district will support her. She needs to do a lot to redeem herself. I want to know how this is going to affect our school culture. So other staff sees this happening. They know she's going through a tough time. They're affected by her behavior. What do I have to do to rebuild my staff? How am I showing them my reputation? If this happens to them, what are they going to expect from me? I want to keep that trust, and I want to keep a professional persona. So what does this look like for me? My biggest thing is I want these kids to like to come to school, and I want to help Mrs. Horton any way I can to get that to happen. And what if she doesn't do good? What if she's still Miss Horton going rogue and saying mean things to these kids? I'm going to have to fire her. And that brings up all those legal issues in my head. Do I have enough documentation? Is my district going to be put up for suit? And how does that look for me? So not to turn the tables and be selfish about it, but yeah, I'm kind of nervous that this is going to go a different way. So that's what I'm thinking right now. What I'm feeling, I had a friend that personally went through some personal stuff, and she never was on eval, but made some poor choices in her behavior. And so I see it. I mean, I couldn't imagine going through what Mrs. Horton is going through and keeping my stuff together for the kids here. I can get, irritated. I just feel really bad for her. And I want to be able to support her personally. I want to be her person she can trust, but I also have to wear the hat of the principal at the same foot. So, man, I'm feeling kind of torn about that. How much empathy do I give this person and also still look professional? How can we restore the students' love for the school after their teacher? And after these things happened, how can we earn back their trust? And how does all of this reflect back on my leadership skills for any teachers that are going through these problems themselves, in the future? Things I value: 100% positive school culture and climate. I drive my classroom that way, and as a principal, that's going to be my number one. And to know that that students in my building are feeling scared to come to school, ooh, that gets me. I am 100%. My staff will know as a principal that you want to see me go 0 to 60, you humiliate a child, you make them not feel welcome here, because that is not their job. So I think being upfront with that, hopefully those issues will be very far and few in between. I am valuing my community relationships. I want to please those parents, and I want to please my teachers. People pleaser, right? I want to bring out the best in others, and I'm really appreciating where Mrs. Horton has come from. So she has the ability to be a great leader and teacher. We just need to find it back in her and, seize the day there. Reflecting. How am I going to make sure that I am focusing on the well-being of every student? I'm going to ensure that the best practices are implemented in the classroom, especially Mrs. Horton's, by observation. I'm going to do everything I can to, embrace that positive school culture. All of my walkthroughs, I'm going to be a very visible principal. You can't hide things from me. I want to see them in work. I want to see them in action in the classroom. And I'm going to align professional development to meet the needs of these teachers, including Mrs. Horton. I found the standards that she needs to work on, and I'm going to help her find those. And I want to do that for the rest of my staff as well. Create a positive relationship with community and staff and students. This is an open door, and families need to feel welcome here, considering this is their second home. So I'm going to handle conflicts in a timely manner and just make sure to be communicating with everybody as much as I can throughout this whole process to make it easy going and a positive experience in the end. So this was my case study. Here's my reference page of the case study. And thank you for watching.